I'm Nikki from the Fabulous Life Builder, where we talk about integrated attachment theory and personal development. In this video, I'm going to go over what core wounds are. In my other videos, I have been talking about core wounds that commonly show up for specific attachment styles, but I think I need to take a step back and explain the basics of core wounds, such as what are core wounds. Core wounds are very deep-rooted beliefs we have that were formed from repetition in our early lives, usually from the ages of 0 to 2, and can even form in our later lives through trauma and, you guessed it, repetition. Those beliefs are so strong in us that they can affect the filter on how we see life through and can heavily influence our actions without us even realizing it. And because of that, core wounds can greatly impact our lives and may be the very reason why we self-sabotage ourselves. Core wounds become our self-identity sometimes even, and our reality. So imagine a baby that hasn't been in the world for very long. A baby's first fears are only of, things like loud noises, physical pain, and abandonment from its caregivers. That baby doesn't have thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or something's wrong with me, or I'm shameful as soon as they're born. They don't have those kind of thoughts. It's more of, I'm wet, I'm cold, I'm hungry, I need my caregiver to take care of me. So the baby is like a blank slate and has no reason to feel the need to prove their self-worth to anyone else or their caregivers in order to get, love and affection and to be fed, So as the baby grows into a child, it starts to learn how to please its caregivers and to adopt to their beliefs in order to make their caregivers happy. Happy caregivers mean their needs are going to be met and they won't be abandoned. Remember, the fear of abandonment is basically a survival need because a baby can't survive on its own. It needs its caregivers to feed it and to change it and to give it shelter in order for that baby to survive. Now, what happens if the child does have a caregiver that's, not so good and they do abandon that child in some form of sense? What if the child experiences people in their lives taking off multiple times? It can be a scary situation for that child, and they have to quickly learn how to meet their needs in order to survive without the reassurance that their caregivers are going to be there for them. They can no longer trust their caregivers, and as a child, they don't understand why the caregivers in their lives abandon them in their time of need. So they make it mean it must have to do with them. Children personalize everything. That's just how their brains work. That child is going to start to think, am I bad? Did I do something wrong? They also start to learn that people always leave me, I will always be abandoned, I don't know if I'm going to be safe or if my needs are going to be met. And now the core wounds are starting to form and take hold of this child's life. With the fear of abandonment, the child learns to be a people pleaser and hopes people will stay to get their needs met to survive. As they grow older, the child, now an adult, will become clingy with people and lose their sense of boundaries. Being clingy can even push people away and cause the very thing that they fear and we're trying to avoid, which is abandonment. So one thing that I think that we should make clear is that not all beliefs are core wounds. but you will know when a core wound is triggered by how painful it is. That person that grew up with the core wound of, say, I will be abandoned, whenever they feel any signs that they will be left or forgotten, they're going to have a really strong emotion towards that. Where other people don't necessarily have that fear of abandonment. If someone leaves or forgets them, they might think, ouch, that hurts a little bit. But it's more on the scale of like, you know, a 2 or a 3, and they're able to move on. To where someone who has the core wound of an abandonment, it's going to be a 10. And they're going to feel physical pain. And it's gonna feel like death. It's gonna cripple them. It's gonna affect their whole day. You know, they're not gonna be able to function as their best selves. So sometimes it feels like death, or that their whole world is crashing down on them. When core wounds are really triggered, it can totally destabilize somebody. And you can usually find out what the core wound is by getting to the very bottom belief in something that's making you feel that way. So let's take, say, Kim, for example. Kim is really triggered that Joe forgot to text her back. And she can ask herself, what am I making it mean that Joe didn't text me back? She realizes, she thinks it means that she wasn't good enough for Joe to text her back. So you can think, okay, so now what does it mean that I wasn't good enough for Joe to text me back? It means Joe doesn't care about me. All right, so what does it mean if Joe doesn't care about me? If Joe is going to leave me because I'm not good enough, and then, you know, you keep going from the bottom until you can't go anymore, and you're like, okay, there's the core wound. So you want to keep asking yourself, and what do I make that mean, until you can't go any further. And for many people, they will even feel that hurt or that sting when they get to the actual core wound. So if Kim's core wound is abandonment, and she finally gets to the point of, it means Joe didn't text me back because I'm not good enough, and because I'm not good enough, Joe isn't going to talk to me again, and not talking to me again means he's abandoned me. And then, then you feel that sting. That tells Kim, okay, you just hit that core wound. So not hearing back from Joe, not getting that text back from Joe, means she's feeling, or she's thinking, I'm going to be abandoned, and that's a core wound that was triggered for her. And that's why she had that extreme reaction. I think it's very important to be self-aware of what your core wounds are. Self-awareness is the first part of healing almost anything. And because core wounds heavily affect our actions on how we interact with the world and how we treat ourselves, if we are not aware of them, then we are doomed to repeat these patterns of self-destruction again and again that create us pain. And we won't even be able to stop it because we have no idea why we are doing this. Learning about our core wounds is like shining some light onto our actions and why we do certain things. Many people try to ignore them or invalidate them and bulldoze over it with like positivity of, it's fine, And in the long run, this never works because it's always going to creep up in some shape or form until you deal with it and actually do the healing. These are so deeply rooted in us. It's stored in our bodies, which is why when the core wounds are triggered, there's usually such an intense reaction. So going back to Kim, if Kim is not aware of what her core wounds are, like the core wound of abandonment or not being good enough, is being triggered when Joe forgot to text her back, her strong anger towards Joe can lead her to do some pretty negative things, such as, yell at him, call him names, threaten to break up with him, or maybe even accuse him of cheating or some other wild stories that aren't true. And to Joe, this reaction is going to seem extreme and out of place, and he might not want to stick around Kim any longer because he's like, I don't deserve the accusations. I don't deserve to be yelled at like this because I got busy with work and forgot to text you, right? But if Kim realizes that the extreme feelings about him forgetting to text her are because her core wounds are being triggered, then she will be able to sit back and think about her actions first, and then question if what she thinks is going on is really going on. So maybe it's simply Joe got busy and forgot, or even maybe he did send a text, but it was never received for some reason, because, sometimes our texts get lost in network. Since core wounds have been conditioned through us, through repetition, we can also condition through repetition them out of us. Core wounds is super important for any type of mental health, self-help, personal development work, and healing to become secure. Healing core wounds have a dramatic effect in all areas of life. Usually, each attachment style has 1 to 2 big main core wounds, like a tree trunk. And the rest of the core wounds branch off of that. So if you can work and heal the main core wound, the other ones just kind of fall away. Healing core wounds can be hard, and it does take time. These are things that you have been carrying inside you your whole life. So the healing process isn't going to happen overnight. These wounds are not your fault, but healing them is your responsibility. If you have any questions about core wounds, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you want to learn more about personal development and integrated attachment style, please like and subscribe to this channel. And if you want help figuring out what your core wounds are or how to heal them, then you can always DM me on Instagram at The Fabulous Life Builder about one-on-one coaching. And remember, you do matter. Your pain is valid. And you don't have to live with it forever.